Also brought to you by the Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. Eat local, but stay coastal at the Boatyard Restaurant. The Boatyard is located at 1555 Southeast 17th Street in Fort Lauderdale. That means you can come by boat or you can come by car. Enjoy the nautical atmosphere whether you sit inside in the cold AC or outside on the patio bar. The Boatyard has something for everyone. Monday through Friday, happy hour, where local favorite is bar bites and handcrafted cocktails. Open for lunch, dinner, and the popular Sunday brunch. And don't forget, Ladies' Night, every Thursday night from 7 to 10 p.m. where ladies drink free. Dock and dine at the famous Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. I am sure you'll have a great experience.
Clear the airways. The Lunkerdog is on the air.
Are you ready? This is the Real Guy Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Guy Podcast today. Very special day for me. I'm up here in Jensen Beach. I'm with the legendary Rufus Wakeman. Rufus is somebody we met through the social network. He's been a long-time supporter, and I'm happy to be here. Also, Stephen Busaka. Say hello, Steve.
What's going on, y'all?
And Larry Jones is in the house in the background. But Rufus, it's great to be here at the River Palm Cottages in Jensen Beach.
Good to have you here.
Now, this is full-fledged fish camp, right?
It's a fish camp, but, it's a clean fish camp. When the husband and wife are driving down the road and the husband goes, "Hey, honey, look, it's a fish camp," the wife kind of goes, "Oh, God, not another fish camp," But then when she gets in and she white gloves the joint, she goes, "We can stay here." So, and it may be a fish camp, but if you don't like fishing, I don't care as long as your credit card works. Heads in the beds, that's the name of this business.
Well, I tell you, I've been by here, but it's been a long time. And I never really spent the time to pull in and everything. But yeah, it's first class. Everything looks great. The colors are phenomenal. The view of the bay here is absolutely phenomenal. That's actually the Indian River right there?
That's the Southern Indian River Lagoon right there, yeah.
Yeah, so at River Palm Cottages, you actually sit here and look at the Indian River.
Yes, you do.
And to think about all the good fishermen that come from this area.
It's a great area. I've been fortunate in my life to be able to travel around the world, but I've really got to say, we got some of the best fishing on the planet right here in our backyard.
It's actually good to be home.
Yes, it is. Oh, I look forward to it. I go, well, that was fun, but wow, now we can get home and go really have some fun.
Now, Rufus, over the years, has had about 9 world records. He's big into fly fishing. He's caught all the billfish on fly, except for the swordfish. And is that still on your agenda?
Oh, it's on my agenda. Just got to do it here in start about in another month. Start giving it a few nights. It's you fish at night for them, you troll, and you get these little bites, and the swordfish comes up to the back of the boat, and hopefully we get the smallest one on record, because I don't want a big one.
Now, it was funny. I was talking to Busaka on the way up here, and I told him, I said, Rufus is big into the fly fishing scene, but a little different than a lot of the guys that we talk to in the fly fishing scene. You don't seem to, let's just say, have the persona where you feel like or act like fly fishing is elitist or above the rest.
It's fly fishing is fun. If it's windy, I'm not going to fly fish. I'm going to fly fish when I want to fly fish, and if I go somewhere on the planet, I'm usually fly fishing. It's funny, I don't fly fish a whole lot in my backyard. But when I go somewhere and it's my time and my dime, I'm throwing a fly. You can rest assured of that.
Right.
And, fly fishing is for a lot of people, it's a natural progression. You grow up, you throw a spinning rod or a spin cast rod, the old thing, the button you push and let the button go and the line goes a mile. Then you go to spin casting, then you might take up bait casting. And then eventually when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you start fly fishing.
Right.
For me, it was kind of the other way around. Of course, I started out spin fishing, and then at about 9 years old started fly fishing out in Wyoming. So I grew up fly fishing for several years, every summer in Wyoming, real river runs through it stuff, standing
right.
in a stream. I always just put on a pair of sneakers and shorts. I never wore waders or anything. It was always warm enough to do that out there. But when I tied my first fly and caught my first trout on a fly I tied, pretty much did it for me,
Yeah, it's funny. I got into fly fishing at a pretty young age, and I think I ruined myself early. What happened was My dad got me a little 9-weight and this little Fenor number, I want to say 8 or something, little gold reel. And we had a place in the Bahamas out in Treasure Key. And I go out there and I go to get my bonefish on fly, and the school of bonefish rolls right up to me. I cast like 3 times and I get a bonefish on fly. And I'm like, okay, that was easy.
Yeah.
And then kind of put it away. And then I went home to Fort Lauderdale and went out one night and drew fly in the lights and got a couple tarpon. And I was like, man, that was easy.
Yeah.
And I didn't think nothing of it. And then I put it away.
Right.
You know? And now that I'm older and I'm taking people fishing all the time, when I do get a little bit of time to fish for myself, or when I do take my travel package, it's usually just a 9-weight and a box of flies, and then I just roll with it.
That's it. That's, you know, it's once it becomes part of your life, it'll remain part of your life. It's just a nice way to do it. Everything on a fly feels a little better, like you've accomplished a little more. It's a little bit, you know, more you and the fish. You set the hook with your hand.
Right.
And there's a sort of a more intimate deal. You know, it's like a little intimate adventure.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so light on the fly, too, that even if you're not hooking a giant fish, it still feels like a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got this CB antenna buggy whip, sort of a, you know, rod in your hand, and it bends a long way. They're 9 feet. So, you know, you can really make the best out of a 2-pound jack on a 9-weight fly rod, you're going to know you're hooked up. Yeah. You might even get into the backing. I mean, you know, it's just a great way to do it.
Right. Now, how many years for River Palm Cottages and yourself?
This is our 20th year. This property was condemned by the county, and it was purchased by a gentleman in Texas. He got it out of the bank, you know, the foreclosure, so he got the deal. I had driven by it for 20 or, almost 20 years. I mean, I bought it in 98, and I had lived here since 83, so, 15 years I had lived here and driven by this property and seen it in various states of disrepair and so forth. And I figured, gosh darn it all, someone bought the place that would have been a really great fish camp, and 3 weeks later there was a for sale sign. And I can guarantee you, I
jumped on the opportunity.
I had the realtor on the phone before I got to the sign. You know, I mean, it was, and I you know, put an offer in a couple of weeks, and fortunately they accepted my offer. The second offer, you know, they accepted it, and we were able to get it, and it's been a really great endeavor.
All right. Every time you hit your hand like that, they can hear it.
Gotcha.
Just so you know.
Just say it again.
Right?
It's like you said,
boom. So you bought the fish camp, but you immediately had the vision.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really simple to see that, you know, we just got to paint them and put tin roofs on them and go in and gut them, and, you know, in some cases had to put all new electricity, and none of them had central air. They didn't even have air conditioners, a lot of them, just maybe window units. And so we really updated it, and then we landscaped the property and threw down some nice grass, and, you know, it's just been a blast. I mean, I could see it way back when, and yes, we've had some real estate market booms where I could have sold this place and made a fortune.
Right.
But sometimes it's just not about the money. It's about giving something back to the community. It's about having a place where people can go that really doesn't exist anymore. The old Florida fish camps are gone.
Right on.
So this is one of the last ones, and has been for years. And, you know, it's a special piece of property. It's just a really lovely piece of property. And, I mean, I look forward to every event that happens here that I can come and hang out.
Right. I think you hit it on the head. It's like everything else has been progressing, and they call it progressing.
Right, progress,
Yeah, developing and stuff. And you roll into here, and you get a taste of that old Florida.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, just like being a guide, you know, you start seeing people come into your camp, say, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they come again, you know, 2 years later, and they had a son that was 7, and now
Right.
he's 9.
Oh,
Then he's
yeah.
13.
We've actually had people that have been coming here for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've been able to watch their kids grow up. I've actually had kids in the neighborhood work here and have their first real job was working at the fish camp. And then their, you know, 2 brothers, for example, their father actually set up a limited liability corporation in their names so they could deposit their paychecks into it and learn about money and how the system works.
Really?
And they went on to become a really successful lawyer, and the other one is a really successful accountant.
Now, you've dedicated your life to fishing for the most part.
Pretty much.
And you've taken thousands of people fishing.
Pretty much.
And now you got a camp where people can hang out and fish from here and,
Yeah.
and do things. What gave you that energy, Doug? I mean, like...
Just, every day is a new day. I kind of look forward to them, Every day you wake up, and the beautiful thing about fish... Oops, sorry.
It's all right. As long as they know what's going on.
Right. The beautiful thing about fishing is that every day is different.
Right.
You wake up, it may look the same to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't notice the subtle differences in the seasons here in Florida. The water looks a little different color when you get into the fall, and the waves come from a different direction, and things of that nature. The sky gets a different color, and it's all very subtle. Florida has beauty that doesn't jump out at you. I mean, it's hard to look at a swamp and find beauty in it for a lot of people, but I look at a swamp and I see cypress trees and birds and grass and water. And just the stuff that lives in it that I know is there, that alligators and turtles and bass and brim and, all that mudfish. One of the most beautiful fish in the world to me is a mudfish. Right. The bowfin is a gorgeous animal. But, Florida's got, it's all about subtlety. And when you go fishing, it's almost the same subtlety. If you get in a weather pattern like summer where it's out of the southeast every day for a month, it all looks the same. Every day you wake up and leave. But as you're going to the inlet, you might see something different. You might see, a pelican dive, or you might see a porpoise roll, or you might see a tarpon roll, or a manatee, or an osprey crash into the water at 100 miles an hour. And every day is just something a little different.
Right.
You mentioned bowfin. You think that might be another record on fly you might try to get as the
Oh
bowfin?
God! I mean, the bowfin. You got to. I don't want to throw my best bird dog into the place where he lives. They're.
You caught a bowfin, Busaka?
I've never caught a bowfin.
Me neither.
A bowfin it's a hard fighting fish.
That's what I've heard.
They get up to 20 pounds here in Florida, and I've caught them probably 13, 14, 15 pounds out of Lake Okeechobee, and they're a great fight. I've caught them on artificial worms. I've caught them on live shiners, dead shiners. But whenever a bowfin eats an artificial worm, you're thinking you got a 15-pound bass.
Really?
And then it turns out to be a mudfish, and it's a little anticlimactic.
It's like bycatch.
Oh well, it's a good bycatch. It's a strong fish, and they're pretty in their own right. It's like a snakehead.
We've never caught one of those either.
I've never caught a snakehead. I never caught a bowfin. This, like that, right around our in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. There, everybody's running around catching all these crazy different fish. And you think I'd learn about those fish on National Geographic or something?
Nothing.
And I'm not. I'm learning about them from catching them in the ditches in
Yeah,
Miami.
right. Exactly. I mean, peacock bass and red midas and Mayan cichlids and jaguar guapotes and bullseye snakeheads and
What's that big one? That really big.
the pacu.
Pacu.
Yeah.
You don't ever
Pacus are native of the Amazon, and they get 60, 70, 80 pounds.
We don't have any pacus in Miami.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do.
Do we?
And Pat Ford, behind Pat Ford's house, he goes out there one night and throws out a couple handfuls of, trout chow for brim.
Right.
It's like dog food, little pellets. And these two pacus come wandering into the chum slick, and I'm standing there on the dock going, Pat, get me a rod. He goes, you'll never catch that thing. It'll rip out line and wrap around 30 docks, and that'll be that. But they're 60, 70 pounds.
They're huge.
I mean, these things they're like barn doors. I mean, they're gigantic. And
there are people on YouTube that are actually catching them on strawberries.
yeah, well, they'll eat berries that fall out of trees, like the grass carp, the Amur carp down here eats a little red ficus berry or a purple ficus berry. So they tie flies to mimic a berry. I mean, I've seen flies that mimic flies and flies that mimic fish, but never flies that mimic berries or fruit. This is like I've seen algae flies too for the milkfish in the Seychelles. They tie an algae fly. that's
Yeah.
kind of odd.
I seen Kantner. I seen Steve Kantner in Fort Lauderdale. He's got a bunch of different flies that are basically mimic the berries that fall off
Yeah.
the trees, the sea creeps and all that.
Right.
And he was doing the land captain stuff years ago, and I thought it was, maybe the most unique type of fly fishing that I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And I think since then, lots of people have caught on to that.
Right.
Hold on one second. Now, Rufus, let me kind of get into something a little different. We have the term real guy, and a lot of people, kind of interpret it a little bit different. But when I reached out to you and I wanted you to come to the Lunkerdog event, we had some people in the network, the twins, the Ernst brothers,
Yeah.
that spent some time here and knew you, and just thought you'd be the perfect fit, for Lunkerdog. So we reached out, and you were gracious enough to take the ride down and spend some time with the network.
And I came to Pirates too, the one you had up here at Pirates Cove also.
Of course, yeah. That was that was like the year after that, right?
No, you had
Or was
one.
it the year before?
I think you had one down south. Then you had one on the West Coast. Then you had one here, and then you went back
2016.
to the West Coast.
Yeah, I get him confused.
Right.
We've been this will be 11 years of doing live events.
Okay.
With the social media, and we actually named it Lunkerdog, or Peter Miller actually named it Lunkerdog about
Cool.
5 years ago.
Okay.
But when you were there, people were really excited. No, they were.
Well, that's cool.
No, they were excited because a lot of the people that attend Lunkerdog are like you and I, like Busaka, all different,
Yeah.
but are really into the whole lifestyle of fishing and
The experience.
yeah, the experience. And it seems like there's no real social event for those people.
No, there's not. There's, we've got all the CCA banquets, which are great. You sit in a room of 200, 300, 500 like-minded individuals, all interested in conservation and so forth, and fishing and whatnot. But there's not any, or the IGFA banquets or the Hall of Fame dinners or
Right.
the tournament functions and so forth. But Lunkerdog's just like a, real guy fun event where you're giving back to the community, and everybody loves it, and it's a blast. And I mean, I'm absolutely all for it.
Well, it's like that was always my thing. Growing up in the industry and doing a lot of the tournaments, and yeah, we would have events, social events, we'd get together, but it just never felt like you could really loosen up the right
Right.
way, or you were tired because you were in a tournament, or you were there because of a boat show.
Right.
But it was never like just a social event.
Just for fishermen.
fishermen.
Right, exactly.
So
It's, and I mean, there's a certain thing about the whole fishing world, I grew up in Palm Beach in the 60s and early 70s, and I used to hang out with an old guy named George DeBay.
right.
Some of the old fishermen in the, that might hear this podcast may put a little smile on their face when they hear that name, George DeBay. I'm a friend of his grandson's, Chip DeBay,
Okay.
who I'm actually going to see if he can come to Lunkerdog. He's a good guy.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
His grandfather is, in my opinion, one of fishing's favorite sons. He owned a tackle store on Worth Avenue in Palm Beach, when the old Palm Beach Pier was there, which was when I was born. The pier was there, but I don't remember it. I was only like 3 or 4, I think, when it went away, when the
Right.
hurricane or something knocked it down. And so I didn't get to fish on the Palm Beach Pier, spent a lot of time on the Lake Worth Pier. George DeBay had an organization called the Kid Helpers.
Okay.
And its token animal was a fat cat, a big fat cat, and I mean it. It was a tabby cat, a gray tabby cat, and it was the fat cat, and that was on the membership card. And he printed up little business cards and gave it to everybody and would write your name on it. You're a member of the Kid Helpers Association, which is, if you're on a pier or a bridge or you're observing people fishing and they have an issue, you offer your assistance. And I remember as a kid helping people get catfish off their hooks because they were scared of them, and I wasn't scared of a catfish.
Right.
I'd just grab it and get my fingers around its spines and remove the hook with a pair of pliers, and yay, here we go. And so that was sort of my thing. And then there's another group that he was part of called the Jetty Conks.
Okay.
These were the guys who fished the Palm Beach Jetty, and it was a snook fishing thing, and I would try as a kid, but was too little, and I just didn't have the right equipment and the knowledge of how to catch big snook standing on the jetty in Palm Beach.
Right.
So, but it was something that I did, and I loved going to his store. He wrapped fishing rods the old-fashioned way. He didn't load them up with all the butter that they do these days. He just put simple deck weaves on and simple guides and whatnot, and did it using a manual set of yokes that he would put the blank in, and he would take bank sinkers and tie like a 6-inch piece of leather to 2 bank sinkers, and that's what would hold the rods down in these yokes as he would hand spin the rod and hold the thread.
Wow.
And he could put a rod together in a matter of 30 or 40 minutes.
Really?
Doing this just manually, and it was just a pleasure to watch, and it was old school, and I used to love to sit here and listen to his stories. And one of his statements that really stuck with me throughout my life is, control your emotions. And it was just something I've always done. I've always thought before I spoke, and always tried to not get too excited about stuff, and try to approach it as like, all right, let me analyze this real quickly and see what I got to do to get the right outcome. And one of the best examples of this, I guess I could come up with, that has been applied to me, was we were in the middle of a dolphin melee offshore. And I had, 25-pound fish running around the boat, and I had a guy hooked up, and I had his little kid going batshit. Oh, excuse my French.
Dude, it's a Real Guy podcast.
But far out anyway. So I'm keeping it cool, and I'm hooking live baits, and we're hooking a fish, and I'm taking the fish, handing it to the kid, and hooking another fish and putting it in the rod holder while I bring his father's fish in. And after it all, the kid looked at me and said, you remind me of the dude.
The dude.
And I went, the dude abides. Any of you Big Lebowski fans out there will know where that's from. And I take that as, that is about the best compliment I could get.
Dude, I love
you
that.
Remind me of the dude,
I still haven't seen that movie.
Because
I haven't seen it.
We were in, where other people would have been, it would have just been elbows and a-holes and stuff flying out of the boat. And, we had a pile of dolphin around. They were good-sized dolphin. And I figured, I just can't get too excited. I got to control my emotions. And I got through it, and we caught 4 or 5 of them. And, all right, we got enough. Let's leave the rest of them. And,
well, I got a little different story from the Ernst brothers about you controlling your emotions.
Okay.
And let's just say that when I took them fishing,
Yeah.
they said that you and I had a lot in common when we're out there on the water.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really hold a lot back.
Oh, we won't hold a lot back, but when the big one gets on, it's like, all right, let's get the anchor in, or let's drop the anchor, or let's do this. Wind that rod in, please. Let me start the engine. Let me get going, because you're getting low on line, right? No, it's, I won't hold anything back, but I try to get through the initial shock and awe of any kind of bite as slowly but as quickly as I can.
No, I think it's important to keep, you're able to stay focused if you can control your emotions and, keep from making simple mistakes. And
Right.
It's way easier to teach somebody when you don't have too much emotions involved.
Uh-huh.
But, I feel you on that. Will you have Osaka? You even getting any of this?
Well, I'm like, the little show that you put on before we even started, man, you were like just ready to rock and roll. I wanted to just kind of sit back and let you kind of get all your stuff out real quick, man.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're getting all this because
I'm like a sponge right now, just taking this all in right now.
Good deal.
Hanging out with Busaka, getting that whole millennial, outlook on every
I taught him the term millennial.
There you go.
He's used it ever since. So if there's one thing I can say I've taught the Lunkerdog, is the term millennial.
he taught the Lunkerdog, but he hasn't been picking up on the slang. That'd be you learned me something.
I learned you
Learned you something, yep.
Well, I was trying not to step on your. I was trying not to steal your thunder either. You know what I mean? I was speaking of thunder. It's probably about to storm.
Yeah, it's about the bowels of hell are about to open up.
That's
Hey, all you folks out there, take this hurricane seriously, but don't buy into the hype. Make sure you get some water and some, beanie weenies and Vienna sausages in your cupboards, and hold on.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, don't evacuate. It ain't gonna be that bad.
Yeah, I think people are starting to freak out already. How come is it every time one of these storms pop up, it's always coming right towards us?
We went from 1948 to 2004 without seeing a storm here in Martin County.
Right.
So we've had several. We've had, let's see, Francis and Jean, Wilma. We had Matthew go right offshore of us a few summers ago. That if it was 30 miles, 40 miles closer, it would have been a different deal. It sort of skirted up the coast and went into Jacksonville, but it was supposed to come here.
Yeah.
It made a little jog when it got north of Nassau, and that's what saved us. Because that thing rolled through West End and wiped it out.
The worst part was I had just gotten done putting up the shutters that morning.
There you go.
Went, took a nap.
Right.
And I woke up and I called my dad. I said, "When's this hurricane supposed to hit?"
Right.
He goes, "It just turned."
Yeah.
I just put the shutters up.
Perfect. Well, that's the deal. Put them up and you won't need them. Don't put them up and
don't
you'll
put
be
'em up
wishing
and
you
you
did.
Well, I mean, the two most serious hurricanes that I can ever recall was, of course, Andrew, and then a lot of people don't realize it, but that little Charlie that went through Punta
Charlie
Gordy.
was terrifying, yeah.
Yeah, that was harsh.
Yeah.
And nobody knew that those were going to be like that.
Right.
They
Andrew, I remember going to bed on a Friday night and waking up Saturday morning, and it was a new storm. I mean, she had gone from a category 1, like a high 1 or a 2, to like a 4 overnight, and then bang, she hit as a 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you can never quite get it.
Right.
So
And I mean, we're very fortunate with regards to the fact that we have not had one of these hurricanes hit a major metropolitan area.
yeah.
Now, when Sandy hit up north, she wasn't even a hurricane. It was just a large storm with a lot of wind in an area that hadn't had that, and it wiped out all those communities in New Jersey. If we were to take a storm in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or, a real ground zero Cat 5 hit, I can't imagine what the damage would be.
So this is my take on it. So every storm that starts to go out in the Caribbean, they show the cone to go right at Miami, Fort Lauderdale, usually the East Coast. They sell a shitload of ads.
Yep.
And then after they sell the ads, maybe, just maybe, you might get the real story on what's going on with the storm.
Right. Well, here's the motto of the hurricanes these days: no refund.
Explain?
It's pretty much the motto. You buy it, you keep it. We're not taking it back. That's the retail motto: is no refund.
Right.
You buy a generator, it's your generator. We're not taking it back. See the sign that's in like 1-inch letters in the back of the shop, far away from anything, but it's there.
It's there.
And that's all it's got to be. It doesn't have to be at the point of purchase, no refund. But they've capitalized on these. I mean, there's already stores with no water.
Yeah.
Our Publixes around here, their water was gone instantly.
People have to go to Winn-Dixie now.
Yeah.
Gas
You know,
stations.
God forbid we go to Winn-Dixie.
I'll make a deal with you and Larry.
Yeah.
If a storm hits here and you guys need some water, I'll bring it to you from Fort Lauderdale.
Perfect.
And then if it hits Fort Lauderdale and we need some water,
Yeah. We'll bring it to
Bring
you
me some?
along with beer.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring beer too. Lots of it.
See, I think the government doesn't quite get the whole thing. Like
Right.
real guys helping real guys.
Right,
Like,
absolutely.
People can do it without them. We don't need.
The last thing I want is them in my face.
Right. Right.
Although I got to say that, if it gets really, really bad, yeah, then, we could go for some, like National Guard to come in to protect the looters, stuff like that, because you're going to have that. You're always going to have looting and, crime. In Andrew is actually the storm that created gouging laws, because there were people from South Carolina, North Carolina, were coming right down into Kendall and Cutler Ridge, backing into neighborhoods where people were standing outside their houses with guns at night to prevent the looting.
Yeah.
Oh, it was frightening. It was scary, but they'd back semis in with generators. And, it's a $1,000 generator, $800 generator, or whatever it is. They were charging $5,000, $10,000. And so the government got involved and created anti-gouging laws, which it was a really good thing to do, I mean, a $200 cordless drill should cost $200. It shouldn't cost $300 because there's a hurricane coming.
Right.
And they've all become big retail events between the water, the food supplies, the plywood, the batteries, the power tools. I mean, we had a storm a few years ago come through, and I needed a cordless drill. My old Ryobi drills, the batteries were shot, so I ran up to Home Depot. I found one Milwaukee 18-volt cordless drill in the whole store, in the back, somewhere it wasn't supposed to be. And I said, wow, lucky me, and I grabbed it and I bought it. Right. I still have it. But, I mean, it's become a giant retail thing.
Yeah, no, it's all about, it's all about selling stuff and marketing to the crisis. And, it's, I don't know, it's par for the course.
Right,
it's not the only thing. It's kind of like the way the world goes round.
Hey, if Jim Cantori's coming to your neighborhood, you might want to consider leaving. There you go.
That's a way to read between the lines.
Yeah.
No, Rufus, listening to your podcast with Tom Rowland and some of the different stories that you were telling, one of the things that just stuck out to me once, the first time I really got to hang out, which was at Lunkerdog, and all the guys wanted to talk to you, and you were real social. Then you get on that Tom Rowland podcast, and you mention everybody else under the book that you had experiences with. Good ones, bad ones, tough ones, scary ones. But it just seems it comes so natural to you to be a people person. And to act humble. We were talking about that. It's like, this is the dude that's holding the world records. This is the dude, that could pound his chest and say, "Look at me, I'm the king of fishing," and that kind of thing.
Never been that way.
You're the epitome, the opposite.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do and something you can teach people to do, and it's not that complicated, really. It's like playing ball or something like that. It's a sandlot game. Yeah. It's a bamboo, crappie rod or a brim rod game. It's just a different way of doing it. But it's all. What's my favorite fish? Yeah, that's the one I'm catching right now.
Right.
I don't care if it's a brim or a friggin' grander or a blue marlin on a fly rod, which is really pretty far out. But if I had my choice, I might go there for the rest of my life and do that. But I mean, it's all about the one you're catching now. Yeah. I just want to have a fishing pole in my hand and the possibility of catching a fish. Right. That's where I'm at my happiest. That's sort of my calm, serene place.
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that too, because I got recently into the whole Biscayne Bay thing with the bonefish.
Right.
And my dad was saying to me, he said, because I said to him, I said, "You ever want to come out there with me?" And he's like, "Man," he goes, "I don't know how you do this. You got more patience than me."
Yeah.
He said, "But what if you don't catch anything and you're spending all this money?" I said, "Dad," but what you don't understand is the experience is what you're also paying for. Being out there on those flats.
Right.
And you're seeing stuff that a lot of people don't even have the chance to see because they don't even have the kind of boat to even get out there, let alone know how to get out there.
Right.
So I like how you touch on that too. It's like I got the rod in my hand. There's the possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
But I might not get one.
Right. I heard from one of fishing's great sons, Flip Pallett, years ago said someone asked him, what do you get out of fishing? And he said relationships.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's a really good, and you can take it way further than just me and my buddy sitting on the boat. I've got a relationship with my environment. I got a relationship with the fish I'm in pursuit of. My tackle, I know my tackle, and my tackle knows me. I know my knots are all good. I know when I see that fish and I have that shot, I'm going to get the best possible shot because my relationship with the wind, the boat, the tide, the current, the this, the that, the that, the this. I've studied it all, and I've built up these relationships. And so I thanked Flip, too, once, because I told him, I said that was a real interesting way to look at it. And I really, when you said that, at first I thought, wow, yeah, my friends, the people I fish with.
Right.
But you can take it further, I got a relationship with Indian River Drive when I'm on my way to the boat ramp, and I know that I better just go a little wide there because there's a bump in the road and I'm going to stress my transom, so I mean, it just, you can just go on and on and on and on and on with the word relationship as regarding to fishing if you take it to those, those distances, those lengths.
No, I think that's a good way to put it because, like you're saying, you can have all those different relationships, and then you can have your people that you like to fish with or you became friends with, and those are a whole different style of relationship.
Right.
But I think you're absolutely correct.
There's
you
definite.
learn something every day. See,
I was gonna say
Rufus,
he's learning this.
learned you something.
And you talk about relationships, the Real Guy Network is
Oh.
an epitome of building relationships.
It's huge. I mean, Jeff, you've done it. By the way, hats off to you, buddy. You've done a great job with this thing. LunkerCon and Lunker Madness and Run That Dog and RTD and all this stuff is great. I love it. It's fantastic.
I think
It's, camaraderie at its finest.
Yeah, I think people have fun,
Yeah.
running with some of the stuff, and I think if you can, some people hate it, some people love it.
Well, whoever hates it, then they're missing the boat. I mean,
See,
there's a lot of that stuff out there. There's a lot of petty jealousy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Larry recently ran into an issue with all these striper guides up in Tennessee and people and, bitching and moaning about, okay, we caught a fish that was 35 to 40 pounds and we didn't get a picture of it till it was dead. I'm 6'4", 350. My buddy who was holding the fish ups, Rick Detata, he's a big guy. We held this fish up. Now, it was, close to 40 pounds. I mean, it's a big cobia. Yeah, that weighs a lot. You know what I mean? So he posted this, and I mean, these people got on him like, calling him names and blah, 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 all because he said it was a 40-pound cobia. And it really got toxic to the point where one guy was like, hey, I'll meet you in the parking lot at Denny's and friggin', and, that's unnecessary. And social media has kind of bred a whole
New generation.
Yeah, new generation of,
Yeah.
A fishing guide that's just in it for the social media thing.
Yep.
A lot of it's the for me, fishing has been for the 8x10 glossy forever. I've released everything I've caught for 40 years. I just don't keep fish. Right. I just don't keep them. I'll keep a cobia, I'll keep a dolphin. I haven't killed a snook in over 20 years. I certainly haven't killed a trout in 30. And I didn't even kill that one. I let it go. I just measured it, and now I have a mount of a 32-inch trout. But, we just don't kill fish.
Right.
And, we'll whack a few kingfish to smoke them and eat them. Of course, I'll whack dolphin. Of course, I'll whack, a cobia or snappers and groupers. But I don't want to kill 40 of them.
Yeah.
I go fishing in the Keys with some people down there, and we end up killing so many fish. I kind of feel guilty about it, but yet it's really fun while you're doing it. And then at the end of the day, you open the fish box and you go, oh my God, what have we done? Yeah. And I mean, you don't really realize it. Wow, there's 20 mutton snappers. Well, I know I can only eat a few of them, and then the rest goes in the freezer. And generally, once it goes in the freezer, that's the end of that.
Right.
So,
well, I want to get into a couple of funny things before we wrap the podcast up. One of the things that we decided when we started doing the podcast, we weren't going to fight the trends, and we were actually going to roll with the trends. And one of the things that Busaka actually noticed, we did a podcast on body odor.
gotcha.
And deodorant.
Yeah.
And kind of like when we first did our YouTube videos on the cast netting, and we weren't, we just did it because that's what we
Right.
did. We cast netted, and then everybody wanted to know about cast netting and which way you threw it and this, that. Well, in the podcast, this body odor thing went over big.
Yeah.
So Busak and I are talking on the way down, and we're like, Rufus is a big guy, and he's spending a lot of time out there on the water.
Probably breaking a sweat.
He thought
Yeah.
you were probably like a right guard guy, and I'm thinking Old Spice.
Bang! Old Spice. Boom!
I told
I didn't say right guy. I said it's a
Bingo.
possibility. I said it
Right
was a
here.
possibility.
Run that dog, man.
I
Boom.
think you talked to him before this and real quick just said, hey, what kind of deodorant you use?
Absolutely not. This is
planned
candid
this.
and completely. I'm Old Spice, and
See, I'm Old Spice, too.
I prefer the white chalky stuff.
See, I don't like that one.
See, I like that one because it's still there tomorrow. Because
that's
I know
why I don't like it,
Right,
because
exactly.
it's
It's still there
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
For the first time in the Real Guy podcast, we're actually redlining the volume over here. So you guys calm down. I told you this is a good topic.
Bang.
Yeah,
But hey, we were onto something.
Yeah.
When we did this, and we said this is something people are going to want to hear about.
And believe me, I can stink like a boar hog. I mean, literally, that just crawled out of the swamp. I
Dude,
mean,
these-
it's pretty ugly.
these millennials get online and they brag about their deodorant. There's kids that get online, they use Axe.
When he's pointing at me, he doesn't
Yeah.
actually mean me.
Right.
I just
Right.
mean
My generation.
you.
Yeah.
Right. And they have like they have like this thing called the 10-second spray. 10 seconds with
Wow.
their spray, 10 seconds with the
seconds.
spray,
That's excessive.
and then they're ready to hit the world.
That's way excessive.
Larry, what are you sporting?
Degree.
You doing degree?
Yeah.
The yeah, degree's good, and you can get that on sale.
Number one.
Right. I mean, I've been doing Axe because I got a 13-year-old, and she thinks it's cool, you know.
Yeah.
And but I took the Old Spice. I had to put it aside.
right.
And
I
Victoria,
use the Old Spice. So.
Yeah.
what? My Old Spice?
Yeah.
I used to love the Old Spice commercials. You know, the really hot blonde, and then the captain comes walking down the dock, and she gives him a little snuggle.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were jamming
What-
way before your time, pal.
I remember that.
What happened to the old days where, like, a good commercial included the hot chick?
Right.
Or
It's,
the
yeah.
or the big, superstar movie usually included the hot chick.
Right. Not anymore.
Yeah.
It's all different.
Yeah, it's totally different now. I miss it.
Hey, it's everything's different. We live in a really changing world, man. I don't know if it's changing for the better either, but
we've been able to stay somewhat politically correct on this
Right.
on this podcast, but that's basically because we only compare ourselves to other real guys.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So as long as you do that,
Yeah.
but the one that,
And most fishermen generally in general are pretty good.
well, I think
Most of them.
most.
Not all of them,
Not all.
by any means.
Not all, and not all anybody, but I think what breaks down all barriers, racial, political, ages,
Religion, all that stuff.
is, of course, fishing, but working hard.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
if,
yeah.
if you're busting your ass and you're working hard, and you're doing that with a Puerto Rican guy, a Jewish guy, and a black guy,
Yeah.
and you guys are all working hard
Right.
together, you break all barriers.
Yeah, and the beer's going to task good to all of you at the end of the day.
It's going to taste better. What's that, Larry?
It's me and him all day.
Is that right?
From daylight to dark. We don't come in.
Yeah.
Fish, fish, fish.
No, but
Hey, if you fish, I don't care what color you are, what planet you're from, we're going to get along just fine.
and I think most sports are like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, if you don't fish or hunt, I generally don't want to know you. I don't really have anything in common with you, and I definitely don't trust you. You know? It's just that simple. I mean, I've been in weird places in New York, down in Greenwich Village, in a room full of people that I am so out of touch with, but I'll find the one person in the room that when I mention fishing, they'll go, hey, well, I was a cameraman who filmed the fishing show, or I was just down in one case, the guy at that party that night was in Florida on 3 days prior at the Waterway Cafe, the old Waterway Cafe down on BJ Boulevard.
Right.
And he mentioned that he was doing a promotional video for water safety. And I said, was Randy your talent? And I had not seen this friend of mine, Randy. I can't even remember his last name, but he used to date my stepsister. And Randy was, it was in 76. 76 or 77 was the last time I'd seen him. And this was probably 1980 89 that I saw him for one night, and then 2 nights later at a party in Soho or Greenwich Village, I run into his cameraman. So it's, there I am in a room full of people named Igor and, Fuzzy and Becky and Dimitri,
And-
folks that are way out of my, we're not even on the same
wavelength.
Oh, it's terrifying. They're wearing turtlenecks and thinking they're really important, and they've teased their hair into styles that are really, pal, really, and it's all good, but yet,
It's nice to find the real guy in the room.
Yes, it is. But, we're all putting one foot in front of the other and trying to get through this thing we call life.
Yeah.
So no matter what, we've all got that in common.
Yeah. Rufus, kind of piggybacking off of what Jeff was saying of how he and I, we had some time to talk when we were on our way down, on our way up here. And one of the things we were talking about, too, is we were like, Rufus, he got a pretty, you have a pretty substantial beard,
Yeah.
And, Jeff and Lamont were at ICAST this year.
Yeah.
And they kept blowing up my phone saying, dude, you got to see all these beardos that are at ICAST.
Yeah, ICAST got taken over by the beardos.
ICAST, it's true. I've had this beard since 1984. It has been on my face. I have never shaved it off. I'm scared to shave it off because I don't think I'll recognize my chins. Anyway, I know my kids would never recognize me. I could sit in the room and they wouldn't know it was me because they've never seen Dad without a beard.
Really?
Yep, my kids would. I'm literally 35 years now. 1984, I've had this beard.
So what's kind of your thoughts on these guys with these really substantial?
Well,
neck
it's
beards?
gotten into this long beard, however long your beard can be. And then, I hate to say it because I'm wearing one, you got to wear a plaid shirt too. But that seems to be the going thing in the fishing world, is wearing a plaid shirt and a Costa hat, just like.
Well, no, it's like a flat. Have you seen?
I don't do flat hats. I don't do flat hats.
My generation
is flat hats.
They call them snapbacks.
Snapbacks,
Is what
yeah.
my generation
Flat
calls
hats.
them.
That's my son's all into that.
Yeah.
He's 19.
So Captains for Clean Waters at ICAST this year gives me the flat brim.
Yeah,
Captains for
right.
Clean
Yeah.
Waters. So I'm sporting the piss out of my flat brim
Yep.
because I'm trying to support Captains for Clean
Right.
Waters. And my 13-year-old is killing me.
Yeah.
She's crushing me about the flat brim. She said, Dad, you're trying to look like a young guy.
Right,
blah, blah,
Dad.
blah.
It ain't working, Dad.
And I'm like,
Glory days are over.
I'm just trying
Because
to.
you got to have it a
There you
little.
go.
You got to sort of
Cock it
cock
to
it.
the side.
It's got to be a little to the side, and if it ain't, man, you ain't cool. Either that or all the way back to this extreme where you're like that to the side. It's really ridiculous. I'm sure I can. Yeah.
You gotta put those back on.
Nah,
We're getting
forget
feedback. Did you hear that?
Dude, that was ear piercing. That was worse than nails on the chalkboard.
Dude, that was like Quint walking in
Right,
and doing
yeah,
a joke
like this.
I think at this year's LunkerCon, we're gonna do a Captain Quint lookalike.
For $10,000, I'll bring you the tail, the whole damn fish.
See, now the caps they were wearing in Jaws, those were the grossest ball caps that I've ever seen
Absolutely.
any fisherman wear, and we get pretty bad.
I'll tell you what, ready? I would like to see them do a word-for-word exact remake of Jaws exactly. I don't want everything to be exactly the same with the technology we have today. Don't know who you could get to replace Robert Shaw or
Nobody.
Richard Dreyfuss. I
Nobody.
mean, you
Or
can
Roy
Brody,
Scheider.
Roy Scheider. I can work with someone. We could get someone to goof on him, but to do a real serious. Because I've seen the Meg and I've seen Blue Water or whatever it is, Deep Blue Sea, which is actually pretty badass. When the shark bites her in half, that's always a pleasant thing to see. But Jaws was so iconic. And I had read the book prior to seeing the movie. As the great fish moves silently through the night water, propelled by short sweeps of its huge crescent tail, its mouth open just enough to allow a steady flow of water over his gills, blah, blah, blah,
That almost
blah,
sounds like
blah.
something Flip Pallet would say.
That's the first line of the book Jaws.
Yeah.
Really?
And that's ingrained in my memory forever. And that
read the
movie
book.
was based on Donnie Braddock and Frank Mundus's 3,400 pounder.
Right.
And Peter Benchley, who I'm good friends with Susanna Waterman, whose father is Stan Waterman, who is the preeminent videographer of our generation.
There he goes again. He's
Right.
one of his people.
Stan Waterman invented the underwater housing, you know. I mean, the guy is a genius. He's 93 years old and quit diving like 3 or 4 years ago because he's blind in one eye, and, you know, he's 93 for God's sakes. But once he gets in the water, he's no longer 93. He's like 18. You know, he puts a regulator in his mouth, goes to the bottom like a stone, comes up as slow as the slowest bubbles, and barely breathes. Gets hours out of a tank. But, you know, Stan is just my hero. And but Peter Benchley wrote that book, and shark fishing and shark lore changed forever. I don't think we'd have Shark Week on Discovery Channel without Jaws. Yeah. And I think that movie deserves to be brought into the 22nd century.
I think you're right.
But it's got to be exactly the same. You can't change it.
Right.
You can't everything.
They're gonna, but that's the thing. If they do remake
right.
it, they are going to try to change it to make it more contemporary.
Right. But you know, I mean, maybe the scuba tank in the mouth thing, that might not be a good option. But that was entertaining, and you know, I can't remember how the shark died in the end in the movie Jaws or the book. But
there's one thing.
Right.
There's one thing that happened in the book that they should have put in the movie, because Hooper banged Brody's wife.
I know, exactly.
Why wasn't that in the movie? That would have been
Wait, that was
because
in the book?
That was in the book. And Reddy, one of the best lines out of that was, I think Hooper was talking to her. She wanted to, you know, have some sort of an affair. Well, he was having an affair, but he said something about how, well, if we're going to do that, we can't do it in the cheap motel because the walls are made out of Kleenex and spit. And I thought, wow, what a line. That is brilliant, you know.
What a line.
But yeah, they never had any of that interaction in the movie.
And I just thought it would have, you know, it would have made it just a little bit more deep. Or
It
maybe
would have been a little saucy, there's no question. But, you know, there's infidelity now, and now we've got this other. That's more a space for the book, you know, because you could go with that whole theme for 30 minutes, and then we don't get the shark eating the kid in the beach, you know.
Right. Well, like we were saying, we follow the trends. One of the things that we did over the 4th of July is we did 5 podcasts in a row on Jaws.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, all different ones. And then the final podcast was Lamont and I sitting together watching Jaws with no volume. And they just got to listen to us bullshit about Jaws 2 hours.
That's awesome.
And I thought I was like, okay, you know, it's funny and everything. Maybe we'll get 100 people to do it. So far, we've had over 700 people.
Excellent.
Watch Jaws and listen to our broadcast over top of it. And
That's fantastic.
And then they email me and stuff, and they start laughing about, you know, some of the different things. And Lamont, just a movie nut, knows everything about every camera, about every actress.
Right.
And we were able to carry on for 5 episodes. So I'm thinking to myself, after the second Jaws episode, I think it was in memory of the Kentner kid or whatever.
Right, yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, this is going to fade off. You know, okay, we started off with, you know, 1,000 listens, and then, okay, the next one will probably only get 500, and it'll go down to 300. But it was the opposite.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually gained momentum.
That's pretty cool.
But there's no other movie
No.
that could do that. And think about that movie was around before him.
Right. Well, there's one other movie you could do it to.
What's that?
It's not fishing related.
Scarface?
Caddyshack.
Oh, we could do.
Well, actually, Lamont says that the only other movie he would do that for would be The Godfather.
Yeah, but The Godfather's, that's difficult. I mean, that's like 3 hours of hell to sit through, you know?
That's like teaching somebody as you're reading the encyclopedia.
Right, you know. But Caddyshack, on the other hand, we can all agree
That's phenomenal.
You know, I mean, Ted Knight, come on. Well,
that was the first R-rated
we're
movie I was allowed
waiting.
to watch.
It's one of the greatest films ever, if not the
funny.
finest film ever
It's actually
constructed.
funny.
It is epic. I mean, they take Chevy Chase and Bill Murray, who hated each other, throw them into one scene and say, just go, guys, go. There's no script
Did
here.
they hate each other?
They hated each other
Really?
at that point. Yeah, there was all that post-Saturday Night Live stuff, and they were not the best of friends. But you're both in the movie, so here's a 5 minutes, go.
And they did it.
And they did it in one take.
Really?
One take.
They wanted to get through it.
And that was all one deal, just one take.
Rufus just learned you something.
Yeah.
See that?
It's by far the greatest film ever. There is nothing that touches it.
Rodney
Gone with the Wind,
Dangerfield
Be
alone.
Done with You, friggin', all of that. Nothing.
What was the line when the kid walks up to the snack stand? He's like, I want a hot dog. I want a hamburger.
And you'll get nothing
you'll
you
get
like
nothing
it.
you like it.
Spalding. Yeah.
Spalding, get your foot off the boat.
Yeah.
When we were teenagers on Fort Lauderdale Beach, Dangerfield hung out.
Yeah.
Right on Fort Lauderdale
Yeah.
Beach.
Did he really?
Yeah. And
I mean, the boat's still down there. The seafood, the big striker, is still down there somewhere. It was just on Facebook not long ago.
They filmed something at like the Rusty Pelican over in Biscayne.
That was part of the
scene.
movie. Yeah, I think that was,
it Rusty Pelican in
Right.
Biscayne.
But as kids, we'd be down at the beach
Yeah.
playing basketball by Bahia Mar, and that's where Dangerfield would go, and he'd be sitting in his chair, and we'd be like, "Dude, check it out, right there." And he's looking over there, we'd wave, and he was super nice and everything. But that's, I tell people when you grow up in South Florida that you're really a minority. Because of the stuff you're exposed to down here, not only the fishing and the boats, but the movie stars and the different
the madness.
Yeah, it's just
the social structures and the this and that, and I mean, it's insane.
Totally different here.
Yeah.
And then I go to school up at UConn, and you try to explain that to the kids.
Right.
Here. And it's like you're.
You mean University of Connecticut?
Yeah. I went up there, played football up there for 4 years, and I learned a lot.
I went to boarding school in Connecticut for 5 years.
What part of Connecticut?
Pomfret, Connecticut for the Rectory School. Suffield, Connecticut for Suffield Academy, of which I was not asked back to for my senior year due to 2 years of general mischief.
Of being a young man.
And then I went to the Foreman School in Litchfield, Connecticut, because I could play tennis.
Well, let me see if this holds common, because the biggest thing that I learned about being in Connecticut was how great Fort Lauderdale Beach was.
Yeah, absolutely. Although my family actually landed in Westport, Connecticut in 1632.
Really?
So there's Wakeman fields and Wakeman lanes and roads in Westport, Connecticut.
That's pretty good.
And I've never really spent more than a few hours in Westport, but I did spend 5 years in Connecticut. My mother's born in New London, lived in Greenwich, and my aunts and uncles lived in, Stamford and so forth. And
My dad's from Bridgeport.
Bridgeport, yeah. The Port Jefferson Ferry. I used to be on that all the time.
I met a lot of good people when I was up in Connecticut.
Oh, me too, yeah.
Same with Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But I would have to say, especially as far as the chicks go, like at University of Connecticut, there was like one hot chick in like every 5,000.
Right. Fairfield County, Connecticut does have some cute gals, though.
Really?
Fairfield County. It's like the only county in Connecticut that's got,
Really, something like it to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. Because ain't no one gonna beat South Florida. Maybe South Carolina or Southern California, but.
I went to Southern California once, and I was expecting more.
Yeah. Well, there's more people, so it's harder. Here we have more cute chicks per acre, probably, than anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, I'm proud to be part of that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Lusaka?
Me three.
Yeah. Larry, what do you think about that? Absolutely.
Lusaka, pull up next to Larry so we can get on the mic a little bit.
Or Larry, here, you pull up next to me.
Yeah. So Rufus, what I see you guys fishing together because of Facebook and stuff. Larry's your dog over here?
Oh, Larry's the big dog, man. We have a good time. No, Larry, I met Larry probably 6 years ago.
Okay.
6 or 7 years ago with the Snook and Game Fish Foundation. They had a tournament here with Florida Sportsman Magazine or something like that. And Larry showed up and, hey, Larry Jones, hey, Rufus Wakeman, nice to meet you. Then maybe a year later or so, Larry called me about trying to do a tournament, the trout trail, something like that, And it's funny because I had thought about that prior, back in the 90s, because of the SKA.
Right.
The SKA, the Southern Kingfish Association, and then, then they had the Redfish Trail after, my thought of the trout trail, and redfish are more conducive to that type of tournament. But trout, you'd almost have to have photo release, because they're not going to live in your live well, but there's only one, redfish or trout you get from North Carolina all the way to Texas.
So Larry,
you could do that.
What's it like hanging out and being fishing buddies with Wakeman over here? Get your mic close because we want to hear this.
he has taught me more about fishing in the last 6 years than I could have learned in a lifetime.
All right. So
It's a real honor.
So
It
you
really is, man.
so you just appreciate everything that you've been able to learn, and
See, I mean, I fished from an early age, growing up in the Carolinas, and you know, I was big into bass fishing and you know, just freshwater fishing.
Deer hunting.
Big into deer hunting, I still am. But at the first time, you know, I moved to Florida. I came here for FP&L years ago in 04.
right?
And I wound up moving here in 06.
Gotcha.
I had my daughter and got married. And somewhere along that time frame, around 2010, me and Rufus met.
Yeah.
And I was doing tournaments here for, like you said, the Snook and Game Fish Foundation. And me and Rufus met, and I was, if I sink my mind into something, I'm head over heels into anything I do, I set my mind to.
Right.
And saltwater fishing was one of them. And it just blew up, man. It just, I started watching your videos and everybody else, magazines, and enveloped myself in the saltwater fishing. And then me and Rufus met, and Rufus was just like me,
Right.
only on a bigger level.
Right.
And we became good friends, and we've been friends probably best friends ever since.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
And, I mean, if I'm home, when I'm not on the road, we're on the water.
Yeah.
You know, and it don't matter what we're doing. You know,
Yeah.
we'll pick a day, we're going tarpon fishing today, or we're going snook fishing today, or we're going sail fishing, tarpon fishing, snook fishing, trout fishing, all in the same day.
Right.
And we do it a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. And, oh man, I couldn't ask for a better friend.
Well, it sounds.
Well, thank you, Larry. Feelings
Sure,
mutual,
no
buddy.
problem, bro.
Yeah. It sounds to me like that's the real guy helping the real guy thing.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
100%.
You know, and you can tell, you know, that you guys are real comfortable with
Yeah.
one another. And let's wrap the podcast up on that, because I think that's what makes the Real Guy Network go around. I think
Yeah.
that's what makes the fishing world go around. And it's all about real guys helping real guys.
Hey, I'm happy to be a real guy, man.
And I'm really glad that we and Busaka made the trip up here to River Palm Cottages in
Awesome.
Jensen Beach. And if you guys have not visited Jensen Beach and the River Palm Cottages, do yourself a favor. Drive by here and take a good look, because when you have to make a decision on where you want to spend some time, this is a hell of a place.
Yeah, we get a lot of people who live in St. Lucie County who come over here for the weekend.
Yeah.
Just because it's just, you know, you don't have to go far, but you do feel like you're somewhere else.
Well, I think the West Coasters would really appreciate
Yeah.
it, because they get the bay and they get the brown water, but then right off the beach there, they can catch their sailfish
You
and
can
some
go
of the
right.
things that they have to really bust
Yeah,
their
you
ass
ain't gonna
for
get
over
them
there.
on the West Coast anywhere close to shore. That's for sure. We're blessed to have the pelagic fishing that we have here.
Well, Rufus, thanks so much for being on the Real Guy podcast. It was a pleasure. Larry, great to meet you. I'm glad you were here.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
And Busaka, old Wakeman learned you something over
Rock
the
and
course.
roll.
That he did. I'm gonna be talking about this stuff for the next couple of weeks.
Good deal.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks for tuning in to the Real Guy podcast.